And since we are recording, if you both wouldn't mind just stating your names for the record.
Yeah, my name is Will Becher.
And I'm Richard Phelan.
Thank you so much. Now, both of you have worked in animation industry for some time, but I believe this is the first feature film as director for both of you. So can you talk about how that opportunity came about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. You're right. Yes, we've both been at Aardman for quite a few years, but also worked independently outside of that. And we both have a filmmaking background, so both going to unis to make our own films. And I think with that in mind, I started out in the animation department and have always focused on character and performance, but I've always tried to make short films in between projects at Aardman. So I guess maybe 4 years ago or so, I spoke to Nick Park about directing and got a job on Shaun the Sheep Series 5 as episode director. And then after that, I worked with Nick on Early Man as his animation director alongside Merlin Crossingham. And then the opportunity for this came up when the producers, Paul Cooley and Carla, had asked whether I would direct it with Rich together, because I think they saw that Rich's background in storyboard and script writing across a number of series and also the half hour and the first feature as a story artist, meant that we'd fit together quite well. So with that story understanding and with the sort of animation floor experience, that's how it came about.
Yeah, similar. So I went to the National Film School in the UK, where I directed short animation films. And so my graduation film was seen by Aardman. So they brought me in as a story artist. And then I've worked as a story artist at Aardman on Shaun the Sheep miniseries of that, and a writer, and then the head of story. And so when they said, would you like to direct? Like the producer, Paul Cooley, asked us. And so, I jumped at the chance. It's a dream come true.
Absolutely. And as you both mentioned, this isn't your first go-around with Shaun the Sheep. You've been working with the character for a while for both the TV series and the previous movie. So when exactly did the idea for Farmageddon come about? How did this sequel come up? And what have both you and Shaun been up to for the last 5 years since the last big movie?
So we literally, as the first film was coming to an end, we started to have brainstorm meetings about what we could do next with Shaun the Sheep. And so in the first film, he left the farm to go on an adventure to find a farmer. And then we thought, what could we bring to the farm that would be more fun? And so we talked about a lot of different ideas, like they discover something buried on the farm, or like something escapes on the farm. And then someone said, it was actually Richard started, the creator from Sheep, what if an alien crashed on the farm? And then everyone just lit up. It's like we realized we'd never made a sci-fi film at Aardman, and we could sort of have loads of fun with like crop circles and UFOs and secret government organizations and robots. It just sort of snowballed from there, really. And so, 3 years of hard work of sort of writing and story process and then actual shooting. And then Farmageddon was born. But in that initial meeting, we were just talking about ideas, and Nick Park was there, and he just lit up, and he just went, you guys could call it Farmageddon. And then everyone laughed, and so we wrote that down, and then it just stuck because it was so funny.
So speaking about bringing the alien character Ulua to the farm, what was a maybe conversation process in what the character was going to look like, what their backstory was going to be, what kind of powers they would have? How did that particular character, since everybody else was kind of, formed up and quite literally made at that point, what was the process like in creating this character?
Yeah, it was a real challenge because Shaun is so well known and so iconic in his design. We did spend a long time working with lots of different designs and drawings until we ended up with the Ulua that you see now. It was a great sort of open brief for the art department and model making, just to have a go at designing all sorts of different aliens. But we knew from a story point of view, we wanted to bring someone into the world that Shaun would instantly like. We wanted to be likable to him. And then over the course of the film, he discovers that she's quite different to what he imagined. So we spent a lot of time talking about all those attributes. We wanted to make her bright and colourful. We wanted her to have these intergalactic sort of alien powers. And as with everything, we spent time just refining and honing the look of her. One of our story artists, actually, Ash Boddy, drew her outline in the end by drawing a UFO, a Roswell-style UFO for a head, and the rocket thrust underneath became a body. And it was great because it was a very classic, very simple shape. We had some earlier designs that were really complicated. And so once we landed on that, it was a case just then of embellishing and building up and eventually getting our animation team. They got their hands on her and, she came to life.
And sometimes when you're coming up with a character and then you have to take that, kind of idealized vision to the reality of your fabrication department, your animation team, was there anything in coming up with maybe the fantastic powers? Was there anything that the animation team was like, I don't know how we're going to animate this? Or was there anything that was particularly challenging or difficult? And then on top of that, did you have any ideas for Ulua that maybe didn't make it to the screen?
Well, early on, the idea was that she would have these sort of Hulk out moments where she could transform huge. So basically, because what Shaun doesn't realize early on is that she's maybe younger than he is. He thinks that they're contemporaries. And so she's having these sort of temper tantrums, but he just thinks she's got this sort of Hulk-like power. And then it just became, there's no way we could actually build this, the transformation moments. It's like in stop motion. And also we realized we didn't need it. We just needed her to be incredibly manic and sort of zany, and that would give us the same sort of feeling. And at one point she used to walk on these giant tentacles as well. We realized we would never be able to frame them in the same shot. Like she'd be like 8 foot in the air and he wouldn't. And so sometimes it's just the considerations of the story and like having these two feel like they're against the world, like they become this really well bonded pair. And so we wanted to sort of keep that going. And so we would give her every power we could think of in order to help the story, and then strip them away and go, does that really help us, or does that just get us out of a jam that we're in? And so we want them to get out of jams through their ingenuity and their cleverness, rather than just go, Lula has another power that can get us out of health problems. Yeah, it's nice. We wanted them more, Lula has powers that would get them into trouble.
Right, exactly.
Or the sort of like the remit that we would work through.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And we had like practical, technical things as well, like the fact that her ears were going to light up when she lifts objects off the ground. And that was something that we did some initial tests just to see if we could do them in camera, but it was quite quickly apparent it was never going to look or feel the way we really wanted it to. So we embraced the sort of CG elements of lighting and volumetrics and things to make it feel genuine when it was happening. Because we wanted to keep it, in a way, it's lo-fi. It's a science fiction film, but it's a Shaun version of a science fiction film. So we couldn't go too spectacular with it. But with those elements on her, we did want it to feel for Shaun like these things were actually happening. So we've got this great animation team who will do literally any test we throw at them. But the lights inside her ears were one thing we realized we had to reach outside of the studio.
So speaking about that, were there any new tools that maybe you developed, or techniques, or like you said, sort of third-party help with computer-generated elements? Anything that you used on Farmageddon that you wish you had, either on the previous movie or movies, 20 years ago? Anything that made it easier? Or all these kinds of leaps in technology and progress, are they just sort of Aardman's pushing the boundaries of what is possible?
Yeah, I guess we're always sort of like, every film is sort of an iterative process of going, how can we push things further? So we had previs on this film, but we've had previs since the first Chicken Run movie. It's just got much more sort of smooth and easy to use. And then digital set extensions. So the art department would build as much as possible, but then we would have CG elements, or we'd actually sort of reach back to the history of filmmaking and we'd have actual matte paintings instead. So it's just sort of like, just as long as the illusion held up and the audience was immersed, every trick in the book we would use, sort of like, we would build miniatures of one location, but have larger puppets so it felt like they were closer or further away from camera, things like that. We used 3D printing for a lot of the vehicles and props.
Yeah. The funny thing about Aardman is it is like we're pushing technology. As Rich says, every film we do, we push technology, but at the same time and in the same studio, we've got the most lo-fi solutions to things you can imagine. So our production board, they're not using high-end computers to run the schedule. They're literally using pictures from the storyboard pinned together with bits of elastic band to show where the animator's going.
There's like, we needed to show that something was on fire off camera. So the DP, he stuck like an old brown bottle over a light and had it rotate, because the way the light just bounces through it, it creates that sort of like almost fireside glow.
Yeah.
And so you go, well, it works. We don't need to sort of reinvent the wheel and find this really expensive CG solution if we just stick bottles in front of lights.
Yeah, he's got so many jam jobs. You can believe it. Yeah.
I love that though. I love seeing the sort of like the old school solutions to things like that, or for effects you never would have thought possible to do practically right there on set. Especially, and I want to talk about kind of the space element of this story, because I don't know if having action sequences and stuff in space, I don't know if that's easier to do in stop motion or if that's literally like a new frontier. Did you guys discover you had to come up with new approaches for things that were sort of set in space to kind of take things away from gravity, away from Earth?
Yeah, the spaceship itself was really complicated for us because it is a physical thing that exists and it took a long time to build and design. But within it, inside it, there are so many individually positioned LED lights. So like LEDs is something we're using more and more on each film. And actually that has been really useful. We can get tiny lights in front of the characters so they feel like they're in this UFO with a million buttons that are all different. But it did also make it more complex, and the scales of it were really hard to work with at first.
Yeah, so like also like the dashboard, like every button the character can press and it can glow and turn off. But of course there are hundreds of buttons, so there's hundreds of wires underneath the dashboard, and like inside all that the animator's got to climb in as well, so it's really complex. And then we use previs a lot for the space sequences, just to sort of figure out the timing and the movement of things. So that certain elements are CG, but then like they built the International Space Station, the astronauts are all stop motion puppets, so they knew how long it would be on camera for and how it would have to move gently and sort of where the CG elements would be so that the eye lines could work. But at the same time, it's just sort of like huge art departments sort of coming together to build these amazing sets as well. So it's a wonderful mix of like the traditional and then sort of like CG technology.
And speaking of traditional talking sci-fi, I would imagine you guys had a blast just coming up with the little Easter eggs from sci-fi movie history, things like references to 2001, Doctor Who, Close Encounters with the Third, I mean, just a ton of them. So were there any that we missed? Either we didn't get to see on screen literally, or maybe we missed because they happened so fast? Or do you guys have a favorite kind of Easter egg or nod to a sci-fi classic in there?
There are tons. I mean, there are literally tons. And nearly every scene and every shot has something in it, because not only do we love sci-fi and the story team loves sci-fi, but everyone in every department has added ideas and sci-fi jokes. So the art department constantly thinking of puns and things that they could put in books. Like I love, there's this, a certain point in the film, there's a flashback for one of the characters and you see them in a classroom. And in that classroom, there's about 3 or 4 different sci-fi gags that most people will never, ever see, but they just make us laugh. And so they go into the film.
Yeah, I have a similar one in the underground base. There's a canteen where all the hazmats eat. And there's like a notice board on the wall. And it's Logan's Running Club.
I think I missed that one.
And it's great. It's sort of like everyone's just going, my favorite film is this, can we sneak it in?
Right.
We've had a few we couldn't get in, but mostly we've been good. The best thing is the art department. They have added pretty much every box or packet in the supermarket is a reference to a sci-fi film. And it's one of those things where you just have to sort of pause it and just see, like, they've come up with every single one. So it's just been such a... Otherwise, we just argue about what the funniest one is. Like the mechanic shop at the start of the film is called HG Wheels.
Right.
But like we talked for it being a Star Trek reference to Scotty, or like the best engineers in the universe, like all these different things. So there's loads of like debate as to what the funniest sci-fi reference is as well.
Do you guys know if you have plans for any sort of behind-the-scenes featurettes or sort of like Easter egg guides or anything like that on the ultimate home release? I know this just came out a few months ago and it's just coming out on Netflix for us here in the States, but do you know if there are any plans in the works, or are you working on behind-the-scenes stuff?
On the Blu-ray, there's a making of Farmageddon, but I don't know what they've cut together, because like we had some really great camera people throughout who were filming all the time other things. Like, they've shot these beautiful sort of making-ofs where the sets are being constructed, or the animators, like time-lapse photography, where you can see the animators sort of like flitting here and there whilst the puppets are alive. And so hopefully, there's going to be sort of like spotted references.
Well. Yeah, there's loads of great footage, and it is amazing to see the scales. When you get a human when you get one of the crew standing next to one of these sets, you realize how enormous and amazing it all is. So hopefully everyone will get to see the behind the scenes that we've shot.
Absolutely. And like I mentioned, this is coming out on Netflix in just a few days for us here in the States. But since it's been out in theaters for a little while, how has the reception been to the movie so far, and how's your reaction been?
Well, from the first test screening we had, we were understandably nervous, having been given this huge character, Shaun the Sheep, to make a second film with. And that first test screening was a sort of pivotal moment for us because we'd spent about 2 years working on this new character, Ulua. And she got a very warm and very genuine response in front of that audience. And from that moment on, we felt like we'd made the right kind of choices. And we've seen it now in different countries. We did a tour and we've been and seen the premiere in France and been to, where else have we been?
Japan and everywhere.
Japan, lots of countries. And it's, what's really lovely is that it is a film that connects with people from different cultures, but also people of different ages. And one of the best screenings we had, I think, was these teenagers in Italy who just loved it. And it's quite a hard audience, teenage, but they really, really loved it. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah.
That's great. What do you guys see as the future maybe for the character of Shaun the Sheep, since you've been with the character for quite some time now?
We're still working on Shaun Adventures at the moment in the studio. Nothing I can talk about just yet.
Right.
But he's not going away. He's not going anywhere yet.
Yeah, there's always more ideas, and we'll keep plugging away.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. What do you hope to see for maybe the future of Aardman animation in the years to come?
We've got some fantastic projects coming up. I don't know what I can talk about or not, but we've got something that's looks totally new and totally fresh and different from everything done before. And I've seen them building the sets and I've seen the test. It looks amazing. And it's so exciting. Everyone on the crew is excited because it's like we're just seeing how far we can push stop motion and new directions with the look and design, and then at the same time sort of like firm fan favorites. Chicken Run 2 is in development right now, and that's powering ahead, and the story is sort of shaping up really well. And so like we've got this nice sort of like mix of things happening right now in the studio, which everyone's really excited about.
Is there anything you can tease about Chicken Run 2? Because we haven't heard too much, or at least as far as maybe your involvement with the film.
It has chickens in it.
Nice.
I don't think we can say anything just yet. It's just Sam Fell is working on it, and it's really exciting. It's got some firm fan favorites from the first film in it, but I can't say much more than that.
Fair enough. I wanted to jump back real quick before I run out of time with you. Jump back to maybe the story breaking process a little bit. Mm-hmm. Since Shaun the Sheep, sort of the franchise, is kind of known for not having dialogue. You don't have sort of traditional dialogue which sometimes helps support or even carry the story. So what was your process like in not only maybe the voice recording booth to get your actors to emote correctly, but also in the story breaking process, knowing you can't rely on dialogue to carry these scenes?
Yeah, we worked with Mark Burton, who co-wrote the first film with Richard Starzak. He was our writer on this, and Paul Cooley, the producer. We'd often sit in a room together debating and talking about the story, and a lot of that was about finding the best scenarios, and it was tricky in a way because we have 3 narratives at one point. The story breaks into different directions, so we spent a long time working on those different paths, but always thinking about comedy and also emotion. So why we care about Ulua and Shaun in the first place, and that was our core sort of. We spent all our time on that really, and then the story team, we relied on them heavily. We test everything in story. We do multiple versions of sequences over and over again to try and get across, without words. And we test that story sequence on people in the company, like the founders of the company and Nick Park. They'd come in every few months and watch the reel and give us a sense of whether they felt it was working, whether we were getting those important beats across. And then we would get into the animation side of things, and we'd act everything out with the animators. And again, that's really like trying to find the best way of selling a particular joke or an emotion or the way a character's thinking. constantly, just finessing all the time and always questioning and sort of pitching to each other about, I think maybe it would be clearer this way, or I think this idea in the story isn't fitting in here, it's confusing. So, we move things around quite a lot. And our editor, Sim, was just brilliant at seeing the whole, working with those 3 different stories and weaving them. He was invaluable for that process. What about the actors?
I was going to say, you've sort of covered it all.
No.
Justin and John, who are the voices of Shaun and Bits from the Farmer, they are sort of the masters of it. And so they would watch the animatic and we would discuss the emotions that Shaun and Bits from the Farmer are going through. So they would then bring all this sort of warmth and comedy in, like, it's to all the bars and sort of like the nonsense speak that the Farmer does. And then we had a new actress, Amalia, and she just brought this amazing warmth to Lula, and she did this sort of like, it sounds like Lula's talking to herself, like she's a little kid, and so everything to her is exciting and interesting, but then there's this sort of mischievous element to the way she sort of giggles, like she's always looking for fun, and like she's essentially Shaun magnified, so she's more fun-loving than he is, and she pushes the boundaries even further. Like, he has a line in the sand for him that he won't cross, and like she doesn't even know what that means, and so he's forever trying to reel her back in. And so Amalia was just able to sort of bring that to life, and then bring all the elements coming together, and then screening it as sort of like, it's a constant refining process. I think even once we've begun shooting, we're still reboarding scenes that the animators haven't got to, so we can start to go, is that clear? Could it be clearer? Will an audience understand this? It's always, we're constantly testing, because there's no dialogue. There's no spoken dialogue. But also, I think sometimes the boarding process is so crucial for Shaun the Sheep, where every nuance and inflection is boarded to test, so that then when we test it with the animators, we'll perform it all, and then we'll plus that in the live action video, and then they can plus that again in the animation. And so it's a constant sort of refining and then plussing process.
And then, like you said, sometimes you don't even need spoken dialogue at all. Like, I could watch that mini mart scene with the soda, the sugar rush, over and over again.
And that's it. It's just like, it's the looks to camera, or just the looks to each other, and you go, I know exactly what they're thinking. Yeah, it's like, that's the sort of magic of it.
It's funny, actually, because the more you do, the more dialogue you put in, actually, the more off-putting it is. In a way, we sometimes try to strip it out because you're not being carried by words. We're not selling this story with someone telling you what to think. It's all about the acting, and it's all about the situations they're in. So, yeah.
And my last question for you guys today, what's up next for the both of you that you can actually talk about? Do you have any other sort of side projects or any passion projects you're working on?
Well, yeah, I've got a couple of ideas for films of different lengths, so I'm currently developing those, and there's a couple of projects here that I'm also involved with.
Yeah, I'm working on some projects here at Aardman that annoyingly I can't talk about.
The diplomatic approach, I appreciate it. Fair enough. Well, thank you guys so much for your time today. Looking forward to the release of Farmageddon here in the States on Netflix for everyone to check out, and looking forward, obviously, to more from the both of you and Aardman as well. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.